As people continue to move away from rural areas, there's a new trend that's developing in churches there. Data shows fewer people are attending services regularly, and that's leading some churches to start sharing pastors. My colleague Brock Turner has the story of one such pastor in southern Indiana.
Let's see, we've been in Texas, New Mexico. We've been in Alaska and back to New Mexico and back to Alaska again. We've been in Oklahoma, and now we're here in Indiana.
As a pastor at Seventh-day Adventist churches for nearly 20 years now, Melvin Matthews has gotten accustomed to doing a lot of driving.
It's a bit frustrating for me to spend more time actually traveling than ministering, so to speak.
While many churches, especially those in metros with larger populations, have a pastor or group of pastors dedicated to serving a single church, in rural Indiana, that's not always the case.
It's an interesting comparison between, just pastoring one church, which we did in Albuquerque and in Tulsa, to be pastoring four. It's really kind of hard for me to compare it in a way because I spend so much time on the road during the week.
During an average week, Matthews estimates he travels nearly 200 miles across southern Indiana, mostly between the four churches he's responsible for pastoring. Many of those miles are spent with his wife of 28 years, Carol.
We were downtown Chicago sitting in a blues bar and talking about, I think I'd like to go back to church. And it was like, really? Me too. And so that was our decision.
While it's more common for Seventh-day Adventist church pastors to travel, it's a trend that's developing across the country. According to the National Congregation Study commissioned by Duke University professor Mark Chaves, in 2006, only 18% of rural churches had a primary pastor that served another congregation. The most recent data compiled in 2012 showed nearly one-third of rural churches across the United States shared their pastor with another congregation.
About half of rural churches have a full-time clergy person compared to about three-quarters of urban churches that do. And kind of another angle on that is that there's more of the clergy who work in rural churches also serve other churches.
As he drives to the 11 a.m. service in Bedford, Matthews believes there's something special about these churches despite their small size. Cedar Ridge in Paoli, Indiana, has a spot in every service for a children's message, but today there weren't children in the congregation. Bedford Seventh-day Adventist Church was a bit more fortunate. 7 children participated in their message, but that doesn't mean the aging population isn't of concern to some of their younger members.
It worries me sometimes because there's not a whole lot of youth in the church. I am one of the only people that will grow up in this church unless we bring other people in. I am going to be one of the only people leading this church. We don't have a lot of youth to lead the church.
As elders of the church and stuff, we take and we do pick the slack up and stuff. We do the everyday running of the church. Pastors, they can't do it all. It's the lay workers that has to pick the slack up and go out into the communities and visit the sick and do so. We all work together on it. The elders, the pastors, the conference, everything works together as one unit.
And it's that togetherness that Matthews says makes each church so special.
In a large church, there's people that just, you see them, but you don't really get to know them for one reason or another, maybe busyness or jobs or their travel. But it seems like when you're around the smaller churches that you just really get to know people better.
Matthews says he wishes he could be a member at each of the churches he pastors. He credits them for creating a welcoming community that many churchgoers say is vital to maintaining a sense of connectedness.
In the small church, with a couple of exceptions, I think that it's a closer-knit bunch of people, whether it's weddings or funerals or just getting together and fellowshipping and have some social events that go on. It's just really nice to be able to, that they feel like the normal flow of their church life is continuing and they just depend on it and live from it.
And the members agree.
Best part about our church and stuff, the the people really and stuff. You got all these different people coming together, worshiping and stuff, and it's like a family. The bigger churches, yeah, they got one pastor and stuff, but in the rural churches like we are and stuff, we ain't never had a pastor that was here. We always had pastors that took and had 2, 3 churches, 4 and stuff. So, you know, you get used to it and you just work around it.
After this long day, Matthews is looking forward to visiting a flower farm. He and his wife start planning their next week on the way home. Easter choir practice in Bedford is proving to be the most difficult to fit into their busy schedules. But they're not discouraged. They both view this time as a blessing. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Brock Turner.